Hey guys, let's talk about phases of the moon. What do I mean exactly when I'm saying that the moon goes through phases? Does that mean that the moon changes itself? Does that mean that somehow the physicality or what makes up the moon changes in some way? Well, no, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about phases of the moon. Phases of the moon is all about perspective. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, from our perspective, the moon looks different, just a little bit different every night, if we can see it, because we can't always see it every night. But on the nights that we can see the moon, a lot of times it looks a little different from night to night. So that's what we mean by phases of the moon. From our perspective, it looks different. And when something goes through phases, whether it's a person going through phases or a thing going through phases, that means it goes through changes. So the moon is going through changes based upon our perspective. And by perspective, I mean from our point of view. And by that, I mean based upon where we are on the earth in relation to the sun and the moon. Because as we know, the moon rotates and revolves, right? We know that if this is Earth and this is the moon, this is what the moon is doing. It's revolving around the Earth, and it's also rotating, right? Spinning as it revolves around the Earth. And the Earth is doing the same thing around the sun, and we do that 365 times. Now think about that. The Earth revolves around the sun and it rotates. And how many times does it rotate as it revolves around the sun? 365 times. Each of those is the representation of one day, right? And then that 365 days that it takes to go around the sun is 1 year. Okay, so I said the moon does the same thing. It rotates and it revolves. There's something really quite magical about the moon, though, and its rotation and revolution. If any of you have ever heard about the revolution of the moon and have studied that, you probably know that it has something to do with a month, right? And the rotation, does that have to do with something to do with a month too? Well, actually, it's the rotation. It's the revolution that has to do with a month. The moon revolves around the earth every 27.3 days. And the moon rotates every 27.3 days on its axis. So it's really kind of miraculous that those two numbers are the same. Okay. Let's get to the light from the moon. Because when we look at the light, we see the moon. And because of the fact that we see the moon, we have this idea that the moon is shining, right? And it looks like it's shining. Well, the moon is seen. That's really the way we should see it. The moon is seen. That's the way we should conceptualize it, because there is light shining on the moon. The light is not coming literally from the inside or parts of the moon out toward us. It's being reflected off of what? The sun. So the rays from the sun hit the moon, and those rays beam back toward us, and we see it as light. Okay? So that's why the moon is visible, because it reflects the sun's light. Now, one side of the moon is always facing the earth. One side of the moon is always facing the earth. If the sun is back here, and if I'm the earth, and over there is the moon, that means the sun light is shining on that side of the moon. And I'm on earth and I'm seeing that side of the moon. And on the dark side, or the other side of the moon, I can't see it. So does that mean that we can only see at most 1/2 of the entire moon? That's correct. At most, we can only see 1/2 of the entire moon. We will never see more than 1/2 of the moon, because the sun can only shine from our perspective on a full side of the moon. Okay? So one side always faces Earth and one side is always away from Earth. So the changes in what we see, and we talked about this already, are called the phases. And as the moon moves away from the sun, we see a bit more of the moon. Let me say that again. If this is the Earth and this is the moon, as the moon moves away from the sun, okay, if this is the sun, this is the Earth, the moon is moving away from the sun, we see actually a bit more of the moon. Now, if I had spherical objects here and two other people, we could move around. Actually, I'd need three, because one of us would have to hold the Earth, and one would have to hold the sun, and one would have to hold the moon, and someone else would have to be helping us with various things. So I need at least four people to really model this whole system, sun, earth, moon system. But guess what? You can see that model if you watch the YouTube videos. There are two of them. I really want you guys to watch these, okay? They're kind of two different perspectives, but they basically are showing you the same thing. And the reason I want to show two, and decided upon two, and I searched hard to find the two best on the phases of the moon. I really want you to watch them. And the reason I picked those two is because I felt that, well, there's some people that are really going to do better with this type of video, and others will do better with this type of video. But you know what? All of you will be better off if you watch both. So I want you guys to watch all of those, or both of those videos, so you get it. Okay, so for now, let's talk about the phases of the moon. Remember, the phases of the moon are the way that we see the moon, how much of the moon we see from our perspective on Earth. Because as you know, sometimes we see all of it. We don't really, right? We see half of it, which is, a circle, because we don't see the backside of it. So it's half of the moon. We call that the full moon, right? And then there are other times we don't see the moon at all. And it could be that you're looking at just in the right direction of where the moon is, but you don't realize it's there. And that's because that's what's called a new moon. Now, let's go ahead and get to all of these different phases of the moon. Let's start over here. I referred to a new moon. Notice that you can't see anything here. Just kind of pretend that this dark area here is totally black. I couldn't make it completely black with my pen, but you get the idea, right? So look, there's no moon here, right? We can't see it. Now, why do we call that a new moon? You would think that new would mean bright and we could see all of it, okay? But the reason that we call it a new moon is because it's the beginning of the time within which we will see the moon. It's almost like the birthing of the moon, right? Okay, so we call that the new moon. And again, watch the videos, because you'll see why it is that sometimes we can't see it at all, and other times we can see a lot of it. Okay, from the new moon, we go to what's called the waxing crescent. Okay, now a crescent is sort of like, some people think of it as like you cut an orange, right? And you get a little part of the orange in sort of a U shape, or some people think like it looks like the fingernail, a cut fingernail or something like that. Anyway, a crescent means that. It means curved, okay? Less than half and curved. That's what crescent is. So this is a waxing crescent. I'm going to come back to these and say a little bit more in just a few minutes. The next phase of the moon is called the first quarter. Now, this is half of a circle. Half of a circle. So why don't we call it the half moon? Well, because really, if you think about it, we're seeing 1/4 of the whole entire spherical moon, okay? First quarter. Next one is called the waxing gibbous. Gibbous means more than half. Think of it that way. Gibbous means more than half. So waxing gibbous, okay? And then full moon, which is a complete circle. Then after that, we see a waning gibbous, so more than half still, but in the opposite direction. Here we have our circle shape, our perfect circle curve here, and we have our circle curve on the left side here, so that's called the waning gibbous. And then the third quarter, remember we had first quarter here, third quarter here, and then waning crescent. Remember we had waxing crescent here, waning crescent here. What comes after waning crescent? New moon, right? So we go back to the very start. Now, I said I wanted to come back to the beginning here and talk about a couple of these words, okay? Well, I already referred to gibbous meaning more than half, less than whole. So whenever you see that gibbous means it's more than half, but it's not quite all of it. Okay, so waxing. What does waxing mean? Waxing means gaining, growing. Think of it as growing. Okay, so waxing crescent. We talked about what a crescent is already, sort of a curved shape. And waxing means getting bigger, getting bigger. Think of it as being born. Now, on that happy note, if I put a line down here, right here, and then include this crescent, line, crescent. What letter do I have? Line, crescent, a B. B for born, getting bigger. B for born, B for bigger. So whenever you see the moon in the sky and it's got this curve to the right, just imagine that line down the center, right? And you've got a B, so you can know that that's getting bigger, okay? So the next night it's going to be bigger, and the following night bigger, okay? Waxing crescent, waxing bigger. You talked about first quarter already. That's a quarter of the moon that we're seeing. And then waxing gibbous, remember? Waxing means getting bigger, right? And again, even though the B is going to look a little different, you still have that B letter shape there. So bigger, getting bigger. Full waning gibbous, waning. Think of, to wane means to reduce or to go away, to become smaller. So waning away, to go away. Well, if I put a line here, curve it around, now what letter do I make? A D, right? D. D for dying. Excuse me. Remember, B for born, D for die. What does that mean? That means it's going away, waning, dying. So whenever you see this shape where that circular part's on the left to make a D, what do you know about the next night? The next night it's going to be a little smaller because it's dying, right? And then we have third quarter, again, third quarter, and then waning crescent, waning, going away. Here's that waning word, waning, going away, forming a D, okay? Allergies. All right, so last thing here before we go. I wanted to hold up these little pictures here, and hopefully you guys can see them well. Let me grab my pencil. This is a picture of the phases of the moon, okay? Okay, so here we have new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent. So these are just like we have here, okay? Now, what I want to do is, because the plan is to play this for you guys on Monday. Wait, it is Monday. It's probably like 1:20, 1:25, 1:30. Anyway, the plan is for me to show this to you guys, and as I point to a phase of the moon, I want you to type in, to text, which phase it is. Okay? So, remember, these are our words. New moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full, waning gibbous, third quarter, and waning crescent. All right. Ready to type? All right. So I'm gonna be pausing it, okay? So it'll give you guys a few seconds to write what the answer is, okay? This is this is this is this is this is this is. All right, how'd you do? You're like, I don't know. You didn't tell us what they were. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to give you practice. Let's try it again. Ready? This one. Full moon. Next. First quarter. Next. Third quarter. Next. New moon. Next. Waxing crescent. Next. Third quarter. Next. Waning crescent. Next. Full moon. Next. Waxing crescent. Next. First quarter. Next. Third quarter. Next. Waning gibbous. Next. Full moon. How'd you guys do? Okay, I want you to be able to tell me what these are, given an illustration when I give you guys the quiz on Friday. So know all the phases of the moon. And I'm also going to be asking you questions about perspective. And you know what I mean by that, right? What I mean is answering the questions why and how. Okay? And you'll know what I'm talking about if you really pay close attention to those videos. All right? So good luck, and I wish you guys well. See you next time. Bye-bye.